can block out house elves. There are very few wards that can do so other than those placed on government facilities. The elf who assaulted Potter was named Dobby. Is there any sort of registry of house elf names?
He asked the solicitor.
None that I'm aware of.
Said Hesjo.
Although the number of private families old enough and rich enough to have multiple house elves is fairly small, and overwhelmingly pureblood. And while I've been in the homes of many purebloods who might conceivably bear Harry ill will, I am embarrassed to say that I've never paid attention to the names of any of their servants. I know, we're all just trained to ask house elves to carry our bags and fetch the afternoon tea, and then we just forget about them. Speak for yourself.
Muttered Ted. He was, in fact, both fond of and intensely protective of his own house elf.
Anyway, the boy obviously can't stay where he is regardless of what happens to this Dursley beast.
Said Ted.
Where are you going to send him? Good question.
Hestia responded.
There's an injunction that says he's not going to the Potters against his will, but they still have the power to veto a placement they disapprove of, which probably means no Slytherins. Longbottom Manor is a good possibility, but Augusta and the heir are out of country and can't be reached. Why should the Potters have any say in the matter, given the fact that their negligence led to the boy's current state?
Asked Snape with a hint of edge to his voice.
Because we have not yet, legally, demonstrated that they are unfit guardians, and we probably won't be able to until I can complete an interview with Vernon Dursley. I'd like to get a memory recording from him and Petunia about what happened so that we don't have to put Harry on the witness stand and turn this whole thing into a media circus. But I can't get in to see Vernon while he's in hospital.
Snape smiled cruelly. You can't, perhaps. 2 hours later, it had been years since Severus Snape had worn anything but wizarding robes. From an early age, he was eager to abandon his Muggle roots and everything that came with them, and the feeling of robes was part of that effort to escape. But he was still Muggle-raised, and basic Muggle fashion hadn't changed. Much since his school days. Nevertheless, Snape's students would have been amazed to see the man who walked into Charing Cross Hospital in the early afternoon wearing a black business suit with his hair scrubbed clean and pulled back into a ponytail. Only the most observant of watchers would have noticed how ill at ease the man felt, let alone attribute it to how uncomfortable he was with the odd sensation of wearing trousers for the first time in 15 years. Snape first checked with the front desk to find out that Vernon was still in IQ. Then he placed a Notice Me Not charm on himself and made his way there. It had been years since he'd last seen her, but it was quite possible that Petunia Dursley would recognize him, and Snape didn't want that, not yet anyway. Near the IQ, he saw the vile woman and her enormous son sitting in a nearby waiting room quietly. He would deal with them later. Soon, he found the room he was sought. Room 535, Vernon Dursley. Inside, the room was quiet, except for the beeping and wheezing of various medical devices. Immediately, he cast a mild Muggle-repelling charm on the room to keep the staff from intruding. He did not plan to be here long. Briefly, he examined the chart hanging next to the door, but Muggle medical terminology was beyond him. Not that it mattered. He had his own diagnostic techniques, as one did not become a potions master without some understanding of healing magic. Several quick spells revealed that Vernon was sleeping under mild sedative. His heartbeat was irregular but otherwise strong. While the doxy attack and the subsequent aura interview were both triggering events, it appeared that his heart attack was simply the result of obesity, lack of exercise, and curiously, the long-term effects of extreme anxiety and stress. From a pocket of his coat, Snape produced a calming draft, which he spelled into the IV drop plugged into the man's arm. Then he pried the Muggle's mouth open and placed a single drop of Veritaserum on his tongue, not enough to compel the truth, as the man's health would not permit it, but enough to make him loose-lipped. Then, after giving the potions a few minutes to do their work, the wizard cast an enervate spell on the Muggle, and his eyes fluttered open.
Who are you? You're not a doctor,
Said Vernon weakly. Then he noticed the wand in Snape's hand.
You're one of them, aren't you? Come to kill me for revenge. Well, get it over with, but leave my wife and son alone. They had nothing to do with it. I am not here to kill you, Vernon Dursley, but simply to find out what happened. Although, may consider killing you, depending on what I find out.
Snape spoke coldly to the man. In truth, he had no immediate plans to kill Vernon, who he thought might presently be more valuable to young Potter alive.
What is there to ask?
He said in a rasping voice.
The freak brought those creatures right up to the door of our house. I've known for years that one day his unnaturalness would endanger all our lives. I didn't want to give him the chance to do something even worse to us. The boy did not deliberately endanger you, Dursley. Not that I would have thought less of him if he had.
Snape leaned in towards Vernon.
No. About the cupboard, Dursley.
He hissed at the man.
You want me to feel guilty? You're wasting your time. I wanted the freak as far away from my wife and son as possible. If we'd been zoned for it, I'd have built a shed in the backyard so he could stay out there. Why keep him at all, if you felt such hatred for him? We knew the Potters would never take him back. Why would they? He was a bad one from the start, always staring at us with those green eyes, waiting for his chance to strike. We tried to stamp the magic out of him before it was too late, but still, every day we could see it in him, growing. See what?
Vernon stared at him intently, almost feverishly, and the beeping of the heart monitor sped up noticeably.
Evil.
He growled in a hateful whisper. Then the man closed his eyes and the beeping slowed. Anyway, I did what I had to do to protect my family. Kill me if you want. I have nothing more to say. Snape sneered at him as he raised his wand. Then I will waste no more time. Asking. Vernon opened his eyes in time to hear Snape snarl the word legilimens, and with that, Severus Snape plunged into Vernon Dursley's mind. The intrusion lasted for several minutes before Snape staggered back in shock. He shook his head violently to clear it, and then looked at Vernon Dursley anew now that he'd seen things from the Muggle's disturbed perspective. He raised his wand again and cast a somnium spell before the other man could say anything. Then he erased the last few minutes of Vernon Dursley's memories, dispelled the Muggle-repelling charm, and left the room. Seconds later, he entered the family waiting room and cast another Muggle-repelling charm to keep anyone else from entering. Petunia stood up angrily at the sight of his wand, while Dudley recoiled from him. What is this? Haven't your kind done enough? Then she looked at Snape more closely.
You.
She's bad.
Yes, me. It's been a long time, Petunia. And before you start squawking at me or yelling, freak, at the top of your lungs, let me advise against doing either. I am here to find out what's been going on in that hell house of yours. Do as I say, and I'll be gone inside of 5 minutes. Resist me, and well, it would be a shame if your husband suffers any sort of relapse.
Dudley paled at that while Petunia's face registered fear, then anger, and finally resignation. What do you want me to do?
Sit down and look into my eyes.
He commanded.
Legilimens.
Snape did not spend as much time in Petunia's memories as he had with Vernon now that he knew which memories were the most salient. He did make a point of reviewing Petunia's memories of interacting with Lily from the days leading up to Harry's birth to the time he was left with the Dursleys, and he was surprised to see that they matched Lily's description. Snape considered using legilimency on the boy as well, but decided that he'd learned enough already. Also, he'd found studying the memories of both Vernon and Petunia to be profoundly unpleasant, and he thought the boy would likely be the same. As with Vernon, he erased the memory of his presence from Petunia and Dudley. Then he left, albeit with even more troubling questions than the ones that had already been answered. From the hospital, Snape apparated to Diagon Alley and went straight away to the offices of Podmore and Associates to inform Artie and Hesture of his findings. Not long after, they contacted Ted Tonks and asked him to flew to their offices as well. Snape, Ted, Hester and Artie talked about what Snape had learned from his invasive and slightly illegal assault on the minds of Vernon and Petunia Dursley. Eventually, he poured his observations out into a pensive so that they could observe things firsthand. After an hour or so, they took a break. Ted went back to the clinic to review some obscure medical books and also write a quick letter for Iris to take to Andromeda. Meanwhile, Snape quickly made his way through a list of muggles he'd been putting together for months, as he interviewed doctors, nurses, teachers, and various inhabitants of Privet Drive. Then he went back to Hogwarts to raid the restricted section of the library. Artie went home to his wife, Elizabeth, for a quick dinner, and then told her he'd be working very late that night. His expression was so grim that this time she didn't chide him about the late hours. She knew the look that said,
Something bad has happened to one of my clients.
and simply kissed his cheek and promised to have the family's house elf leave a late-night snack for him. Around 8, the four reconvened to discuss their findings and spent several hours doing so. They also went through an entire bottle of Ogden's finest, though not because it was a happy occasion.